when it comes to the scale of how widely Arthashastra is globally accepted.
More than 25 foreign languages have Arthashastra translated into their local language. If you look at this one point, in the US Army, they teach Arthashastra. In the Pakistan Army, they teach Arthashastra. And Pakistan believes as a narrative because Takshashila was there. It's ours, and there is a parliamentary discussion on this.
Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrutyonman Amrutam Gamaya, Om Shanti
Shanti Shanti.
From ignorance, lead me to truth. From darkness, lead me to light. From death, lead me to immortality.
Welcome to EtherWire podcast. I'm Jyoti Rai. I'm joined by a very special co-host, Santosh Sirur. Arthashastra was not Chanakya's original work.
Sure.
He wrote this while he was studying in Takshila, and as the history says, and as your interviews that I learned from, that it is to apply the knowledge. He was called back to the kingdom to apply it. So my question to you is, we are living in times of AI, there's nothing original left, right? But your idea of originality and Chanakya's originality gave a very different dimension. So your insights on that and the application of the knowledge.
Jyoti, that's a wonderful question. It is said that there are no original thoughts. The universe has all the thoughts that you have in some era. I mean, it's an ego which says, it's my original thought. And the way we are looking at our generation, okay, you patent it, you copyright it, and say, okay, it's my original thought. I mean, that's a very, very, I would say, selfish way of looking at things. Yet, there is some originality involved because, I guide a lot of PhD students. And when they write papers, I can tell exactly how much is cut, copy, paste, even before the chat GPT. But at the same time, I always tell my students, give references. Okay? So, stealing is not good, but if you say that everything I have written, I know you already started with the wrong discussion. In fact, I was guiding some defense officers with very senior position who are doing their PhD. And I was telling them, they're asking plagiarism. They're saying, originality is how you interpret it. And that's your original way of looking at it. But original thought may not be there. So coming back to Chanakya, in the generation of AI, okay, it's easy to gather all the information. Yet, you can have something called as NI, natural intelligence. So AI can be a support tool, but AI is only a tool which can help you to actually go back to NI. So Chanakya's Arthashastra, as you rightly pointed out, is not the original Arthashastra. There were at least 14 other Acharyas of Arthashastra before him, whom he quotes also in Kautilya's Arthashastra. But he has got insights and said, okay, this is relevant for my generation. To give a simple example, was Einstein the greatest scientist of all times? Or did Newton, discover gravity? The answer everybody knows is no. But we say that they discovered. So it's a natural law that they found out. It existed before them. So if gravity was there, it is not something that he invented, it was a discovery. So we can go back and say we had Indian rishis who discovered gravity, that's fine. But my question is that they made it prominent as a science which is relevant. So we should probably look at, maybe an Einstein or a Newton contributing to that field. So Arthashastra is the science of politics, science of governance, science of leadership. It existed before Chanakya, but Chanakya made a prominent role in such a way of interpreting it for that generation, and that's his originality.
Right.
Probably the visibility is what he created for the world, right?
Right.
And he became the face of Arthashastra.
Right. But there is always an element of, a lot of teachers try to say their textbooks are same. But some teachers say it differently, explain it differently, and that makes all the difference in your.
And some teachers can complicate it also.
Can further, यार इतना simple चीज को complicate करके वो क्यों बता रहे हैं?
Dr. Pillai, I was very keen to know when it comes to the scale of how widely Arthashastra is globally accepted. Its acceptance globally and the interest, and especially in today's world where there's so much of geopolitics, there's so much of development, interrelation between countries. Where does this scale of the acceptance of Arthashastra lie around?
So it's a misnomer that ours is a globally connected generation. Because of technology, we think that what's happening in US is known here, etc., etc. But human race is always connected, which are part of the history globally. So let me give an example.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Otherwise, we think it's a globalized world.
Yeah.
It's a very, very, I would say, economic and trade related language. So maybe if you have a, let's say a phone, it could be thought about somewhere else, designed somewhere else, manufactured somewhere else, sold all over the world, and maybe after servicing is happening in some other place. So we see the activities globally. But to say that we are the only generation which is globally connected is wrong. So I'll give an example. Before technology, or what we call today social media, were not people connected? True. Maybe their tools were different. The speed was different. Like
in absence of internet, imagine.
Absolutely. Subhash Chandra Bose was a global citizen.
Right.
The Indian National Army that we call about INA was actually created out of India for India. So he goes to Germany, he goes to Singapore, he goes to Japan. So wasn't he global? Now coming back to the point, I'll give one more example. In Chanakya's generation, they were equal thought leaders across the globe and they were connected. Maybe at the ether level. Because it's so important to know, for example, the concept in Arthashastra of an ideal leader is called Raja Rishi. Now thoughts have their own, vibrations to reach other scholars of that field. And Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they were the thought leaders or leadership gurus in the Greek culture then. Can you believe that Aristotle actually built on a thought called philosopher king?
Wow.
Now, there are two ways of looking at that. Either he got the thought from there or maybe we got the thought from there. But the reality is that today our ideal leader in the Western culture was also a philosopher king, which we call Raja Rishi. Now, there are of course theories around it, which is called Rajamandala theory, where we have concepts like Dushman ka Dushman dost, enemies a friend. Now this can go into technical details and we can chart strategy around it. But coming back to the point, in this generation or that generation or even future generations, you'll be surprised that Chanakya is relevant because it talks about not ancient wisdom but eternal wisdom.
Wow. Time to correct.
Absolutely.
We can correct. No, but wonderful. I think taking further from Santosh as well, I think from a global acceptance perspective, there are a lot of countries that have gone way beyond adapting certain philosophy, practicing and acknowledging it as principles. I heard Germany has been, quite vocal about utilizing, eternal wisdom from Indian Vedic literatures. I think what is that scale of countries adopting to our Vedic wisdom? So,
if you look at our generation, yoga, Ayurveda, even to a great extent astrology, has been now globally accepted. Some people voice it out, okay, they are very loud about it, but some countries are not, it's okay. But it's important to know that the wisdom of Chanakya is relevant a lot today. I'll give a couple of examples. Chanakya is actually part of textbooks in Japan.
Wow.
It is not even in India. I remember meeting a Japanese scholar and he told me something very prominent, saying that Ashoka is a part of their culture.
Oh.
Textbook stories, the way we speak about Rabindranath Tagore or Shivaji in a school textbook, it's a part of the education curriculum in Japan.
Wow.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, of course Ashoka is more prominent, but they link it to Chanakya's teachings. And he was India's first global emperor. And he was the grandson of Chandragupta Maurya. So many people don't even know this fact that we have this assumption that the country outside India which loves Sanskrit the most and very vocal about it is Germany. Are you aware of it? It's not true. It's actually Japan.
Wow.
So I'm not saying that Germany doesn't have a role. So you have the Max Mullers and many people. And Swami Vivekananda actually met Max Muller. But all that narratives is almost one part of the global narrative of Sanskrit. But Japanese scholars are so much into Sanskrit, and this has been told by the HOD, Head of Department of Sanskrit Department of Mumbai University. They go for their global conferences.
Right.
So coming back, Chanakya. How prominent is Chanakya outside India, I can tell you. In fact, I read a book when I was doing my initial research. More than 25 foreign languages have Arthashastra translated into their local language.
Massive.
And it's not just Germany, it's also Italian languages, so many languages. Coming back, if you look at this one point, in the US Army, they teach Arthashastra. In the Pakistan Army, they teach Arthashastra. And Pakistan believes as a narrative because Takshashila was there.
Takshashila. Yeah.
It's ours, and there is a parliamentarian discussion on this to own Chanakya. Why is India owning?
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. You can go on debating who
Yeah.
owns it because anyway it's a universal,
Yeah.
application and principle. So summing it up, I would say it's like yoga. It's a universal principles and law. Maybe right from your asana, pranayam till samadhi. It may have originated in India, but it's got global
Acceptance
relevance.
is global.
Absolutely. And there's so many scholars. I teach in so many Ivy League universities in the US.
Yeah.
And I find this, they do more research than what we do. So global acceptance, yes, but some are vocal about it, some are not.
Okay,
Right.
that's interesting.
Right.
So, what kind of lessons can we learn from Chanakya's childhood?
So again, all these are folklores.
Yeah.
And one of my history professors told me, you can never actually go back and say this is the history. Because all about references, narratives.
Yeah.
So I would talk about what is generally spoken in our generation about Chanakya. So born Patliputra.
Yeah.
And what's the lessons? Number one, even if you are a born genius, you still require training.